Oh, hi there. I'm Dominic with the Anti-Fitness Project, and I'm here to chat to you about the fitness industry. You see, because the fitness industry has done a most excellent job in positioning itself as the experts of your health and your fitness, but does it actually deserve that accolade? Well, join me for this little hike through history and we'll find out. In the Stone Age, people kept fit purely for survival purposes. Because your ancestors were hunter-gatherers, and that meant that they had to be pretty active, but not exceptionally so. And we know this because studies on modern tribes show how our ancestors probably did move. The hunters in the tribe would have walked up to about 9 miles a day looking for prey and honey and things like that, and the gatherers would have moved up to about 5 miles. Now, obviously, there was the odd bit of effort if they had to run after a deer or dig up a tuber or climb a tree for honey or something, but we're not talking too much major long exertion, and the whole thing took up probably 5 hours, give or take, a day. Then the rest of their time would have been spent doing chores, and this involved carrying things like kids and water and food and rebuilding shelters, and then a lot of their time was spent chilling too, because in the wild rest is just as important to survival as moving is. Because energy is precious, so you wouldn't want to bother wasting it on stupid shit like push-ups or burpees. Hunger kept them fit as it forced them to move and to move often. For us, however, Uber Eats doesn't quite do the same sort of job, unless I suppose you're the one delivering it. Hunter-gatherers don't really expend much more energy than the average Westerner does, as they are so efficient at moving. But there is a huge difference between the way that both sets of people both move and rest. See, movement for a hunter-gatherer is fairly constant even at rest. But our Western rest is passive. It's sat on chairs in front of TVs, but theirs is really active. It's sitting on floors and socialising, and all the little movements that we now rely on modern inventions to do for us. So let's move down the timeline to ancient Greece, Rome, and Persia, where two things were important to their civilization, and that was making war and having fun. And fun meant feats of human prowess or just killing shit in public games. And both of these types of activities needed fit young men as participants. So this was the first time we hear of exercise as a structured activity, as clearly soldiers and athletes need to train to keep fit for that stuff. This also meant that maybe for the first time people needed professional fitness trainers. Specific fitness like this was never designed for the masses though, because whilst the general public admired the fitness prowess and the sculpted bodies, people didn't necessarily want to be like them. They were just happy watching. Nothing much exciting happened around the medieval times as far as fitness goes. The agricultural era was in full swing, and so people were mostly just trying to stop themselves being killed by bandits, kings, or religions, just sort of keeping their heads down. Armies were still the only ones who trained, whilst most everyone else was farmers or they had other physical jobs like building. And whilst they did all the work, the rich folk pottered around on horses, whilst the religious folks worked on punishing their human bodies so that their souls were ready for heaven. Fun times. Human lives totally changed in the 1800s when the Industrial Revolution hit. People began to move from active working lives in the countryside to far more cramped, sedentary ones in towns. People moved less, but they also started eating less farm-fresh food. Instead, they needed quick, cheap meals in between factory shifts, which led to the invention of almost fast food. And the Victorian version of a Mackie D's was a pie, a pudding, and a shitload of booze. And because of the rise of slavery and sugar plantations, it meant that the people ate way more sugar than they ever had before. Now, this new kind of lifestyle had consequences for the population, which pissed off the elites as it didn't fit their plans for world domination. Europeans have always loved to spend time warring with other Europeans to prove whose national dick was the biggest, but they were becoming a bit shit at it. crushing losses for countries like Germany and Italy made them realise that their citizens had become super unfit. Obviously, professional soldiers still trained hard, but the general citizens now weren't fit enough or well enough to be cannon fodder for the national good. So, for the first time, exercise came to the masses. Governments made people do daily calisthenics. It became part of the school and the workday. Now, these workouts were intended to increase fitness for war, but also to reaffirm to the people doing them that they were subordinate and that their job was to follow orders. Meanwhile, however, the elites were playing sports to improve their leadership skills and competitive edge to set them up for a life in charge. Oddly, the Industrial Revolution, where everyone was becoming less and less fit, also overlapped with the golden age of bodybuilding. It started off as a circus sideshow like feats of strength, but actually was becoming a significant subculture, and we saw strength contests, fitness magazines, and even bodybuilding celebrities for the first time. By the 1950s, strength and muscularity were being sold as a commodity available for men who wanted to get massive, instead of just a weird niche hobby. The first fitness facilities opened to the public as well, but their user group remained small at first, mostly just the elites who had spare money, free time, and a love of showing off to each other. Having the means to exercise like this proved their superiority over the lower classes, as yet again they got to do a thing only available to folks with money. By the 1960s, despite all the gymnastics, we still weren't as fit as we were before we moved into the cities. Odd that. People now had more spare cash and free time, but they still weren't really embracing the fitness industry to spend them in. But the government decided that they needed to step in and do something to stop the massive increase of people dying from chronic diseases like heart attacks. And science jumped in to help, and after a few experiments connected moving more to living longer. Of course, gyms were proper fucking chuffed. They now had scientific proof that being active was good for people. And they advertised the shit out of it. Cleverly, they changed the message that moving more helps you live longer to exercising and using gyms helps you to live longer. Subtle, but oh so effective, to the profits of an entire industry. Fitness was becoming a must-do in the mind of the general public, and gyms claimed the titles of experts and caretakers for it, even though no one actually asked them to. Fair play though, the fitness industry did take its self-appointed role very seriously. They came up with ways to back up their credibility as the experts in all things movement. They made up qualifications and fitness protocols and correct techniques and rules for how to do it right. And they used scientific-sounding, complicated jargon that you needed to be an expert in just to work out what the hell they were chatting about. People bought into the idea that you needed special clothes and foods, and there were tons of magazines and books and fitness videos sold as well. Fitness trainers became celebrities in their own right, and this all combined to make people believe that moving their bodies is complicated. They lost trust that they could move without the fitness industry's help. And the question slowly changed from how much should I move to stay healthy to how many times should I use the gym? And once movement got taken from us like this and turned into a commodity, it was easily sold back to us. And governments, they fucking loved it, because it meant that they didn't have to take responsibility for the actual reasons why our health and fitness was becoming worse. Things like inequality, stress, overwork, machines that were taking away our active jobs. Instead, they can now just go tell people to work out. And if people died of a heart attack, well, fuck it, it's probably their fault for not having a gym membership. And the fitness industry didn't just stop at gyms with our movement. They took over as many different types of it as they could possibly monetize. Rules and standards were added to even things like walking and running. People wrote books on how to do it properly. How to walk, for God's sake. And Eastern philosophies of movements were taken and bastardised and turned into Western classes which toned bingo wings and tightened asses. And currently, way too many people know how much gardening they need to do in order to burn off a fucking Mars bar. And yes, it's now even in our homes. It started off with a Jane Fonda VHS, and now it's home hit sessions, apps, calculators and home exercise gear. And 10k steps a day is our personal health mantra, despite there being way more marketing spin on that 10,000 steps than any actual science. Yeah, it's better. Now, I don't know where the fitness empire will end. We gave them permission to own movement, and we allowed them to invent their own definition of fitness with no questions asked. But we still don't stop to ask them if they're any good at keeping us fit or healthy in the long term, because the dropout and the failure rates of gyms would seem to show that they suck at it. In a book I read recently called The Fitness Industry, Gyms and the Commercialization of Fitness and Fun by Roberta Sassatelli, she said that the gyms are about the notion of fitness, because they don't actually meet the definition of it. Fitness is the ability to complete your day-to-day tasks with a little left in the tank for emergencies. But the fitness industry has redefined this to mean the ability to achieve a predefined and pretty medicalised version of fitness. So things like heart rates and VO2 maxes and BMIs and standard times and 1 rep maxes. They're allowed to constantly change their definition and keep making it harder or more specific so that you always need them in order to stay fit. But is that what you need? The fitness industry is perfect for you if you want to get really good at using a gym. But if you don't need to deadlift 100k or row really fast, then is it actually fit for purpose for you? If you remove the industry definition of fitness, ask yourself, what does being fit mean to you? Is it walking upstairs with ease or beating the kids to the swings in a race? Maybe it's feeling strong and vital or bendy and supple, and a gym can totally help you do all these things. But most people find gyms boring or hard or expensive or fucking terrifying, and we shouldn't be shamed into believing that that's a bad thing, because they only fit a minority of personalities. You do not need the gym or the fitness industry, you just need to remember how to move without them. And I can remind you how. So stick with me, and I promise you, you will never need yoga pants or a dumbbell again. Thanks for sticking with me.